Welcome back. All right. I see we're going to have to start the open over again because it's a frightening event. It is a reunification of the SHOPO Hour. The boys are with us in studio. All right. Brother Bobby has the morning off. Brother Nick is in studio with us. Welcome back.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm going to wait for you. Brother Mark Critchio here in studio.
Hey, happy Monday, Rick. It's been a minute.
It's been a couple of minutes.
You know, happy New Year, happy Chinese New Year, and all that stuff. You know,
and
it's been a while.
You better throw Hanukkah in there because I don't want any controversies.
Okay, we'll throw Christmas too then.
And there we go. All right. And there we go. Now, Brother Steve.
I'm right here in front of you. I'm right in front of you, big boy.
I'm just saying. It is good to see you. Welcome back.
It's Rick. It's fabulous to be here. Always happy and grateful to be here with you and your listeners. It's long overdue.
The SHOPO Hour features dedicated airtime in celebration support of the membership of SHOPO. So, Brother Steve, as Vice President of SHOPO, do us a favor, reset the table of why we get together on Monday morning.
Well, we're like I said, we're always happy and grateful to be here with you, Rick. It gives us an opportunity to directly connect with your listeners, share with them things that are important to us, make the listeners feel more connected to the men and women in all of the counties here in the state that wear the uniform. The people in the communities can feel more connected to the men and women that serve and protect the communities. Also, it gives us, we feel, a platform to have robust discussion with you about current events that affect law enforcement, public safety, and it gives us an opportunity to come share thoughts and comments that we feel are appropriate, and then maybe correct any narratives that have kind of gone down a rabbit hole that need some clarification. And we're happy to be here, and we're coming up on almost a year, aren't we?
Pretty close, right,
yeah.
Mark?
Yeah, pretty close to it. Yep.
That was way too fast. A year. Gee, many Christmas.
Yeah, I've been retired a year already. Love it.
We're going to do reintroductions, and Brother Steve, thank you for starting us.
Sure.
Brother Nick, would you mind, once again, a little bit about yourself and your role as SHOPO?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks. My name is Nick Schlapak. I'm the Honolulu chapter chair for SHOPO, a police officer for almost 15 years now, Honolulu Police, patrol officer the entire time. Currently work in District 7, which is East Honolulu.
Mm-hmm. I thought Nick looked great when he dressed up as Santa Claus at the SHOPO holiday party. That was, I was just.
Thank you.
So,
I don't know what to say.
But that's the last time we saw each other, and it was a definite pleasure. And that's just how much time has gone by.
Yes, yeah.
So, remarkable. Brother Mark, what brings you to the SHOPO Hour?
Well, you know, just to get out, kind of like what Steve said, just to get out our side of the story, the side of the story for the rank and file, because, you know, people that are working nowadays or employed with the Honolulu Police Department, they're bound by policy. They cannot say what they really feel about, say, what's going on with news stories, say what prosecutors are doing, what judges are doing, you know. So now that I'm retired, I could put out there the truth. So we're going to say our side of the story, you know, and it's not going to be one-sided. The public's not going to hear one side of the story anymore. That's why we're here.
And it's rather interesting because it continues. That controversial, questionable reporting takes place. Now, I'm not throwing him under the bus. It's just that it's awesome and ideal that there is, of course, a balance and that has both sides, inclusivity in the stories. Now, saying that, has there been anything that has emerged recently, even since we were together last, of a story, a narrative that is in the public domain that you would like to address?
Well, I don't have a story in particular, but what I did notice was we had a recruit graduation recently within the last month or so, right?
Yes, sir.
No one covered it. No news station covered it, right? And I think we graduated like 14 recruits.
I believe that was the number, sir, yes.
You know, what's it going to take to get a news person over there, put it on the air, right? it's a positive story for us, right? For recruit graduation, it's a proud moment for a lot of people and their families. But look for a negative story. Oh, they're right on top of it. So if you're going to report the negative, report the positive too. That's all we're asking. Nobody covered those recruit graduations.
Interestingly, I had the chief on this past Thursday, and I also had the chief on the conversation we had about recruitment, and had 2 recruitment officers who were very generous with their time and their thoughts about the key to recruitment of officers. So I really implore other broadcast agencies to make it a priority, because there are complaints, Nick, all the time. Oh, well, Waikiki and the level of crime and unsafe. But when the process is underway to address concerns, more people should know about it. Yes.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
What is it about the recruitment class, when a class does achieve graduation? What's the first step for them?
Well, the first step is to go on what the department calls the field training program. That is essentially that they're paired up for a certain amount of time with a training officer in a patrol district, typically about 4 weeks at a time, through 3 different phases. So 4 weeks, then 4 weeks, then 4 weeks in 3 different places. And throughout the course of that time, they're evaluated on several different factors.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if they're competent and they're safe and they can do everything they need to do, they graduate out of field training and into what we call the 4th Watch program, which is typically where you see the officers wearing their hats, walking around in either Chinatown or the Waikiki area.
Mm-hmm. And how long of a process does that normally take, from application through class to hopefully graduation?
Ooh, at the moment, I couldn't quite tell you. The Honolulu Police Department took over the application process a few years ago when Chief Ballard was the chief of police. In my day, I was kind of expedited. It took about a year for application, from the time I filed application to the time that I was entered into the academy, approximately 6.5 months in the police academy, and then from there about another 4.5 months in field training.
Yeah. That's a tempo.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, right.
Is there an estimate, not necessarily specifically, but at the point of recruitment to graduation, what's our retention rate for officers to actually go through the process and graduate? Any idea?
Well, at the moment, it varies. The classes are much smaller than they used to be.
Okay.
If memory serves, when my class started, it was quite large. We had, I think, about 86 people in it. But on the first day of our class, interestingly enough, the officers from the Human Resources Department actually said, okay, the third of you in the back of the class, please stand up. And we all had to stand up. And they said, statistically, this is the amount of people that are not going to pass the recruit school. So a third of us were standing, and we kind of looked at each other and went, oh, wow, this is going to be a lot more than we might have thought it would be. And that was sort of a challenge, I think, more than anything else from Human Resources, was these are the numbers. Can you beat the odds?
Yeah. Steve, Mark?
So when I came in, usually half the class didn't make it. I think our class started 61 or 62. We graduated 33. But there's various reasons why people don't make it. Some people, it's not for them. They realize, oh, you know what? I don't want to do this job. And then other people just, maybe they can't handle the academics, or they can't handle the physical part. I mean, there's all various reasons, right, where they don't make it. But, to me, the department or HR should not be looking at, oh, we need to graduate more. It's like, okay, if we graduate half, we graduate half. We lose 50%, you lose 75%, but the 50 or 25% that stay, we know we got the cream of the crop. That's what we should be concentrating on.
That's the detailed process, necessary process to do so. Brother Steve, thoughts on this?
I think Mark brings up a really good point. If I remember correctly, when I was looking at some numbers, all counties are short. Okay, all counties are short. Specifically talking about Honolulu, I think we're coming up on about 400 personnel short. But this is the key. Graduating people is important. Recruiting the best is important. But like Mark said, we have to do a vetting process that's thorough and rigorous. So when you see an officer in each one of the counties wearing that uniform, you know that they have a level of proficiency. You know that they can make decisions under stress. You know that they have satisfied at least the basic requirements to get to where they need to be. And some of the most impactful learning with our career happens in years 5 and 6 and 7. It's initially you come out, then you get in, and then obviously with repetition and practice, you develop those investigative skills. But officer safety is key. Even officers in the tail end of the field training program can get released if the training cadre feels that there's officer safety issues or things that are just not happening. It doesn't mean these people are bad. It just means that in this particular occupation, either they realize it's not for them, or those that are in a position of power and authority to make that decision realize that.
If I may, and again, we'll take a break here in a few moments. As SHOPO representatives, what are the concerns that are voiced most by membership, and what is the scope, and maybe even share what some of those specific concerns are?
If it's our members regarding retention and recruitment, obviously the current officers that are in our membership ranks, they want to make sure that the people applying for these jobs and that get through the process are going to be of a high caliber, and that they're actually going to be effective cops when they hit the street. A lot of our members are very vocal about making sure that when people come out of the training academy, right, Nick, that they're proficient, they have basic things. I know that our membership feels, Nick, and you can jump in here with me, that we need to recruit more, we are short-staffed, and that they're doing the best they can to kind of keep things going.
Yes, actually, the personnel strength report, the most recent one, said that uniform vacancies is now up to 392, which is, quite a bit more than we started with at the beginning of last year in February of 2022, when SHOPO started highlighting the unfortunate deficiencies for staffing amongst all 4 counties. But currently the recruit classes are smaller. The department is trying to put more of an emphasis on one-on-one learning. So the theory is that with a smaller class and retaining the same amount of instructors for the class, however, you can actually have more personal relationships with people to try and guide them through. People don't get lost in the mix, so to speak. Yeah. But yes, there is definitely a heavy emphasis on making sure that officers are safe and knowledgeable before they get out of that program. That's really the key.
Brother Mark, before we take a break?
Yeah, same thing. So mirroring what these two gentlemen said over here, one thing is huge is the officer safety part. So let's put in perspective. Recruit school is a baseline. It's just a baseline or a foundation of what's to come for them. Once they hit the road, once these recruits hit the road, now you're talking real time. There's no isolated, easy scenarios. I mean, you're talking real time. There's real guns, real knives, right? Real people want to hurt you, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a real hard transition for a recruit to make, right? It's really stressful, and like what Steve alluded to. Your first 5 years, you're a sponge. You're just learning. So you have the foundation, but now you need that experience. And once you get that experience, then you're rolling. But it takes time.
Nothing can replace the experience.
Rick, and I just wanted to jump in when it comes to recruitment, and this is why the narrative nationwide with the media is so damaging. You have a young individual out of college, early 20s, making a decision to what they want to do with their career. You have media reports that our occupation is racist, corrupt, the way they paint law enforcement. The media is doing a disservice to communities nationwide by portraying those that want to go into law enforcement, or I should say specifically those that are in law enforcement currently, do the job for the wrong reasons, don't do it right, put out this narrative that we're the villains. When you keep pushing that, these young people coming out, that obviously they're not Gen X's, they're younger than that, 23, 24, they think differently. They're not going to want to get into the profession, and that's why this is so dangerous, is that this narrative that somehow law enforcement professionals have become the villains. And these young kids coming out that have different options, are they going to select to get into this noble profession, a career in law enforcement? And we see it right now. It's not happening. In fact, go down a rabbit hole even more. You have law enforcement professionals that have dedicated their lives to doing this, that as soon as they can get out, they want out.
Yeah.
They hit 25 years, if depending on where they were in our contract, they're gone. They have the ability to work another 7 if they want. So we're in a very nationwide, our profession is under attack, and we're in a very dangerous situation in our country right now that various politicians and the media are portraying law enforcement as the bad guys, and that's dangerous. It's dangerous for many reasons, and it really needs to stop, or departments nationwide, not just the police departments in this county, are going to have a hard time recruiting because nobody wants to sign up for something where before they even start their first day, they're going to be hated and vilified. Who wants to do that? Who would do that?
Seattle is now trying to rebuild a degree of law enforcement after they dismantled. But one of the directives now under the new and improved, as they're presenting it, that shoot to kill is no longer an option. It is only shoot to injure. And that is a directive that was cited in a news report as recently as this morning. So not only is it obtaining recruitment and recruits in direct opposition to the message that you've been sharing, despite that, then if you are a police officer, holy smokes, you have absolutely 110% accountability and consequence if you breathe funny in front of an arrestee. That's on record. That can be taken. That can be exploited. Yeah. So while you're on the job, the second guessing is the thing that I would convey to be dangerous. Dangerous because you're not in the moment of the moment. You're in the moment of, well, what do I have to do so I don't get in trouble?
Yeah, there's a lot of that second guessing. And, let me correct one thing, Rick. Yeah. There's a big narrative out there with these news organizations that police shoot to kill. We do not shoot to kill. We shoot to stop the threat, okay? And if the person happens to die in the meantime, okay. But we don't shoot to kill people. That's the last thing a police officer wants to do when he goes to work in the morning. But if that threat is threatening the public or the officer, him or herself, we're trained to stop the threat, not kill. Okay?
Understand. And that is the viewpoint that's being advanced by the administration of the city of Seattle, of invoking that. If you're a police officer and you're in contention and you have a situation, you better go for the leg. You better go for it. Yes. Don't go for any of this. And that's cray-cray.
As any competent firearms instructor will tell you, when you are trying to operate the mechanisms of a firearm under stress, we are taught to shoot center mass. Now, if you want to get all Hollywood and think that under stress, depending on the lighting and the background, that officers are going to be able to take leg shots or arm shots, this isn't 21st Century Fox. This isn't Paramount. This is real life. This is stuff that happens on the street. We are trained to shoot center mass, which is where? In the chest. Mm-hmm. The biggest area that we can, under pressure, under stress, to make sure that the public and the officers are safe. To try to talk about marksmanship where you're going to be shooting arms and legs and whatnot, that is not even close to being realistic.
Nick, final thought before we break.
I would just like to add that Major Grisho is absolutely right. The training mantra in the Honolulu Police Department, firearms training for all new recruits and all incumbent officers, is that you take your shot to neutralize the threat, and it's always hammered in there. The idea of shoot to kill is forbidden. To say it is not something that is taught to new officers. It is to neutralize the threat.
And there we have it, the SHOPO Hour. We've already gone through half an hour of the SHOPO Hour. My goodness gracious. Brother Nick is in studio also. Brother Steve, Brother Mark, and your telephone calls coming up. We'd love to hear from you. Topicality aplenty, though, and we'll delve into it in a moment. But for now, primetime traffic and more. Once again, I want to thank you very much for being with us. It is the SHOPO Hour here on News Radio 830 KHVH. I do have to take a break coming up in a few short moments. However, let's go to our phone lines and let's see. We'll get the call track set up here in a moment. But I'm going to go to line number 1. Hi, who's this? And you're on KHVH Radio. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. This is Kurt from New Valley.
Good morning.
My
Good morning.
question. Hey, good morning. My question, while the issue of or the topic of the officer or judgment and split-second decision making and so on is fresh on your minds, could you explain the union's position and discussion with regard to the 12-hour shift? How extending an officer's day in that environment serves the public, policing, and the officer with regard to being really at their best in those stressful situations.
Kurt, that's a great question. I appreciate it very much. And hold on the line. We'll have our brothers give you their thoughts. Who'd like to lead?
Sure, I can start. So
Okay,
thanks
Nick.
for the question, sir. How would a 12-hour day affect officers and their ability to service the public and whether or not it would wear them down quicker or whatnot? Well, first of all, the schedule that's being proposed is a 3 12-hour day. So it's 3 12-hour shifts in a row. Is it longer than what we're doing right now? Yeah, by about 3 hours. If you take into account commute time and what might happen at the end of the shift, having to stay longer than 12 hours and so on and so forth. Yes, it's going to be a longer shift for sure, but there is a fourth day off every week instead of a third. Currently, it's either 2 or 3, depending on what your work shift cycle is in the matrix of work shifts. But I suppose one could say it has some potential to possibly have an effect on an officer that way. But, at the same time, when we started this last year, this push and this focus on how many officers are out on the field and whether or not the public is getting service correctly by the amount of officers that we have currently, the focus from SHOPO was to try and get more officers out there to serve the public. It was to try and get more officers out there to have enough backup for the officers that were already on shift. And we think that if done correctly, that's what this 12-hour shift can do. So will you be working a few extra hours longer? Yes, if we were to do it. But would you have more people out there working with you at the same time? Yes, you most likely would. So can the workload be divided more evenly across the board amongst those extra people that you have in the field? Yes, it could. And I've seen this happen personally from my time in patrol. During the Ballard administration, when Chief Susan Ballard decided that she was going to implement minimum staffing percentages and then increase them regularly on a yearly basis, I benefited from that as a police officer. I worked in the District of Kalihi where we had 23-man beats, all right? The minimum amount of officers that we were allowed to bring in was 15 out of 23. It was a good day if we got 15. That doesn't include 15. Maybe one person has to go to extra training for a couple of hours. Maybe 3 people aren't showing up on time because they're at PM court, right? So you might start the day with 10. I've seen that, all right? And I'm not going to name names, but I will say it from a union point of view. I have worked patrol shifts where you started with 10 and the division commander was just like, good luck, guys. Be safe.
Wow.
Right? So, am I a proponent for getting more police officers on in the field? Absolutely. Did I benefit when we had a better minimum staffing? Yes, I did. I was going home on time more frequently. I'm just going to say it. All right? We were dividing our cases. So I wasn't taking as much work as I normally did. We were able to spread it out amongst my coworkers. And I think, from my point of view at the time, it worked out better that way. I think we had more coverage. I think when special projects came up, like when we had complaints come out from the public, like, listen, we've got a lot of speeding at this time of the day on this roadway, which is a major thoroughfare. We'd like somebody to go out there and monitor the speeding. Well, when you've got 15 out of 23 people, that's a hard thing to do. All right. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're working hours where, for lack of a better term, it's pumping. All right. You test out at the beginning of shift, you're fielding cases and arrests all day long till the end. Okay. Right. But with more officers on the field, you can address those quality of life issues that the public is always asking about. Parking, pedestrian complaints, traffic complaints, those kinds of things. When you don't have enough officers, you can't get to that.
Quickly,
I'll go as quick as I can. Thanks for your call, Kurt. Appreciate your participation. The 312, let's talk about it. First and foremost, there are other first responders communities that work longer shifts. For example, fire works a 24-hour on shift. We propose this as a union, the 312, because to Nick's point, we knew that if we went to a 312 schedule, it would dramatically help staffing within the districts. We're already working short. So would you rather have officers working 3 extra hours with more manpower in the field, like Nick said, so the workload is more distributed, or working short, 60, 70% staffing, working a 9-hour day, but you're killing yourself? Or you go to a 12-hour day where you're able to get 3 or 4 more officers on those beats in that watch, and the workload is more divided. We've also done our homework. The majority of departments throughout the United States do not have a 5-9. They're on a 312. They have a 410. That's just the way it is. You talked about recruitment earlier. We have to have incentives to want to get into this. We feel that the 312 could assist in recruitment. We felt that the 312 would help with officer staffing during the day. And again, I want to stress this. It's 3 extra hours, but if you implement this schedule the way it's supposed to be done, you're going to get more officers on that shift coming to work. The more officers you have as part of that team is going to divide the workload up, like Nick was saying, so they're not going to get as tired throughout the day. Then, 3 12-hour days, sure, that's intense. Got it. But then you're going to have 4 days off to spend time with friends, family, recharge, do whatever you want to do, take a trip. So we feel that this would be a good schedule. We're going to, here in Honolulu, we have a survey coming out. Chief Joe and his team, Nick spearheaded this. There was a pilot program, Kalihi, on District 4 on the Windward side. It's going to be coming up on a year. Chief Joe already announced that him and his team had done their due diligence, done the research, and they think that it's a smart move for Honolulu PD to go to the 312. Believe you me, they didn't just come to that decision recklessly. They obviously looked at the stacks, and they feel it's the best way to go. Obviously, as a union, the Honolulu chapter needs to agree to that, but we feel that the 312 schedule will not only benefit the officers, it's going to benefit the community because there'll be more cops working on shifts, and we're not going to have issues with fatigue because there's going to be more officers working. Mark, do you agree?
Oh yeah, I
Gentlemen, I have to
go.
go.
Okay,
Sorry,
sorry.
I'm so far behind, but I'll come right to you, Mark, when we come back. It is the SHOPO Hour, and we're already 7:39 in the morning with a lot of great information. Nick, thanks for your call, and we'll be back in a moment.
Now,
it is 7:44 in the morning. We'll have another update with primetime traffic in just a moment. But our conversation before the break, and Brother Mark Critchio, I'd like to turn back to you for your thoughts, and then we'll continue on.
Yeah, so thanks for calling in, Kirk. But, I don't know what you're alluding to regarding, the 12-hour shifts with the officers. But, I worked both 12-hour shifts 2 different times when I was a patrol officer. There was a 9 to 9 in the morning and then a 6 to 6 in the morning. I worked both, okay? When you get home, you're a little tired. But I was equally tired when I got home from an 8 or a 9-hour shift. Right, it depends on what you're doing on that shift, and Nick hit it right on the head. They looked at this 312 to put more officers on the road. You have more officers on the road, you have more guys you're working with. Your caseload is going to be evenly distributed, and you're not going to be busting your butt like they're doing now, going from case to case to case to case. And then let me tell you, their 9-hour day now, they are beat because look, 400 positions short. They got nobody, right? And then, again, like Nick said today and I discussed prior, there's no room for proactive activity. You just don't have the time to do it because you don't have the people to do it. If you have more people on the road with the 312 or wherever they go to, you're going to have time for that. And you're going to have time to address the complaints of the public, right? There's a lot of complaints coming into the mayor's office, to the department, whether it be speeding, parking, the homeless. Well, that's a whole nother story, taking up so many resources. They just don't have the time to do it because they're running from case to case. So are they going to be fatigued? No, because they're professional. They know what they're doing. They know how to run their caseloads. And it just put more guys on the road to help them out. So
we're already at 7:46. Thanks, all 3 gentlemen, for addressing that particular issue. I want to transition very quickly. The State of the State address is later today at 10 a.m. Governor Josh Green is going to make statements about the priorities of our state. The unfortunate part that I surmise will not be addressed is expansion of prison space. Now, there were conversations during the campaign and even in the early days of the administration, there was a commitment to various things, such as tax relief with the GET and also with prison construction, because we have a $2 billion budget surplus and the utilization of those in regard to law enforcement. A companion piece is a rededication of Bill 1567. Its previous iteration will be reintroduced, and this, of course, is under the guise of bail reform. I'd like to get SHOPO's take this session. Are there priorities? Are there concerns? Are there any comments about potential legislation or lack of legislation that would affect your members?
Well, Rick, I can share with you that SHOPO is going to be actively involved in any legislation that we feel puts our members or the public at risk. And I know that's a very general statement, but again, any proposed legislation that is a labor union that represents cops statewide, if we feel that legislation puts our members at risk or the public at large at risk, we are going to speak up and we are going to be extremely proactive. Since the new board was elected last year, we've tried to be proactive in developing relationships with legislators, building relationships with individuals in the community that have positions of influence, so they realize they can get a different opinion, a different backstory. Obviously, people like Governor Green, he's going to have a team of people around him giving him advice, sharing comments with him. When he first got elected, I think I openly shared that we would love to have a dialogue with him. He's welcome to reach out to us at any time for any of our feedback. We're happy to share. I know that his focus has been on heavily climate change, and that's all right. But there has to be a realization that the counties, the state, it's not as safe as it was. It's just not. And I'm hoping to hear, as a citizen and also a law enforcement officer, that in this state of the state, there is something that acknowledges and recognizes first responders, specifically police professionals, law enforcement professionals, and a pledge that his administration will stand behind law enforcement and work with us and support us.
Good luck with that, Steve. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Well, way to grease the doorway there, Brother Mark.
Just saying. I hope you're right, but I don't see it, But
there's years to build a relationship, and that's what we're going to do. Since you alluded to it, what is SHOPO going to do? And
right.
we are going to actively be involved in legislation, again, that would affect our members and any legislation that we feel would put the community at risk. Bail reform, that's probably going to come back. We're going to address that. And the prisons, we've talked about that. We're not here to say lock people up and throw away the key. But here's the thing. If there's consequences for bad behavior. And if a judge, we want to give the judiciary the ability that if that judge feels incarceration is appropriate, and that needs to happen as part of the process, then they need to be able to do that.
So very quickly, and I'll go around the table. Marijuana, again, making its ubiquitous return. The legalization of recreational use of marijuana. Now, there's a statement made by the governor that he does not want to see minor drug offenders do any prison time. So whether it's whatever that criteria would be, that's an objective or at least a sentiment that he has publicly shared. So I'll start with Nick and then go down the table. Marijuana. Should it be legalized for recreational use? And should there be a prison alternative of consequence for drug offenses?
Well, I think first of all, minor drug offenses and mandatory prison time, prison sentences You might want to do some research and see how many people who are caught on minor possession charges actually do prison time. All right. The fact of the matter is, I think if you do that research, you'll find that that's already a non sequitur. I think that's a null factor. I highly doubt that anybody who's caught on a minor PDD or whatever is going to do any prison time. For the felony arrests that we're doing right now, people who are caught with dangerous drugs in the second degree. We just had an arrest in my sector a couple of weeks ago. That's a Class B felony. You used to get a $20,000 bail out of that. I think they gave him a $5,000 bail.
Yeah.
So all of this is already coming into play pre-legislation. That's the mindset. As an individual, taking my union hat off, taking my police hat off, I do not think that legalizing possession of marijuana is a good idea. I don't.
Understand. Thank you very much for that, Nick. Brother Steve?
You're not going to prison if you get caught with a small amount of marijuana. That's just not happening. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's under 3 ounces is a violation. It's not. You're
getting a ticket.
That's a good talking.
3 ounces?
Yeah, that's a good talking point. Like, nobody should go to prison for marijuana. Well, that's not happening now. Okay? If you go to prison for drugs, you are distributing drugs. Let me say that again. I don't care what you get picked up for. If you are going to prison for drugs, you are a drug dealer, not just a drug user. Okay? Let's be real clear on that.
But see, real quickly, Sylvia Luke is a state representative, chair of the finance committee, also along with Josh, are saying because we don't want minor offenders to be in prison. That's why we're backing the whole bail reform, so people don't have to. Go ahead.
So let's back up real quick. There's jail and then there's prison. Prison is where you're going to be incarcerated most likely for more than 5 years. Jail is where you go to await trial to serve out smaller sentences. Nick works in the street. I work in the street. I can tell you right now, if you have minor amounts of drugs on your possession, you are not spending large amounts of time in jail, and you're certainly not going to prison, if any, and you are not going to prison for sure, unless you have ridiculous amounts and you are a drug dealer / distributor.
Gotcha. Mark, half a minute.
Half a minute.
Make it a full
same
minute.
Same thing.
Big boy.
So, it's just their politicians' facade of their workaround for bail reform. That's all it is. Like these guys said, these people are not doing jail for small amounts of drugs right now. So this is, bail reform didn't work last session, so this is their little workaround, right? To get their foot in the door to work around this bail reform crap. So, don't fall for it. Don't fall for these, and I knew it when Sylvia Luke got in, and then, Josh Green was like, prove me wrong. So they're not.
I love that Mark may be retired, but his new career as a drummer lives on.
This table's not going to withstand. Keep hitting the damn table.
We got to take a short break, and final one for this hour. I love that Mark may be retired, but his new career as a drummer lives on.
This table's not going to withstand. Keep hitting the damn table.
We got to take a short break, and final one for this hour, the SHOPO Hour. Heard right here on News Radio 830 KHVH. We're working on a program. Stand by. It is 7:55. Welcome back. We literally have just a few moments remaining on the SHOPO Hour, and I do mean that, but I want to go around the table and just ask for a quick final thought in the remaining moments. Brother Mark Critchio?
Hey, I'm going to go a little off topic. So I had to renew my truck registration the other day, right? I do it online. So
$9,400.
Oh, it's crazy. Over $500-something, right? For a 2003 truck, okay? Anyway, so I'm looking at what I'm paying for, state tax, weight tax, blah, blah. So there's a $7 highway beautification fee. When's the last time you saw a beautiful highway in Hawaii? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
My point is, I'm sick of paying all these...
Stop it!
Okay. I'm just sick of paying all these stupid taxes, and where's all this money going? Meantime, they got $1 billion surplus, right?
I would have loved to have heard from Steve and Nick, but little drummer boy on the other mic, we are...
Oh, they drive me nuts.
Tell you what, we are at the end of our time. Brother Steve Keogh, Vice President of SHOPO, thank you very much. Brother Nick with the Honolulu chapter of SHOPO, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope you'll be back soon. Brother Bobby, hope you're doing well, my man. Love you and miss you. And we'll get together next week.
Done.
Done. There we have it. And Mark will bring a hi-hat. Then we get the low and then go. Take care, folks. See you next time.